Wow. Okay. This is cool. Where do we get to? Ecuador, San Antonio, Prague, Washington, D.C., Jakarta, Indonesia, Chile, UK, Portugal.
Philippines.
Czech
That's
Republic
awesome.
again.
Yeah, and there is a poll that you can answer. If you're having any trouble, let us know. But there should be a poll popping up on your screen. What does a BIM manager do?
All right. We've got a good one today. We're going to be talking about the full BIM management workflow, and we will be introducing the 3 simple steps to remove the administration burden. And we are looking at a lot of automation that will help you to do that. So, hey, everyone, I'm Clive.
Hey, Louis here.
This is Akos.
And today we're going to be talking about the BIM management workflow. We'll have an introduction, a couple of slides, and then most of it will be a live demo. And we'll finish with some resources at the end to make sure that you have something to follow up on and some training resources as well. As we saw there, BIM managers do a lot, and it's magnified because the BIM tasks actually are dedicated to other purposes, multiple purposes. And that could be whether you're creating a model for marketing through to understanding, analyzing it, quantities, clash detection, simulation, or you're creating a handover model. All of those are really demanding and require different aspects of your work. And in order to do that, we need to use lots of different approaches, different tools. And that can be pretty challenging. We've got all of these different things that we're doing. We're training teams, we're managing the BIM execution plan, defining standards, managing content. I see all of the replies in there, managing the clash detection workflow. And on my word, it could drive you to be a little bit overwhelmed and want to maybe take a drink. Well, we're saying, what if this could all be super simple? What if we could optimize it and remove that burden of administration? And what if we could put that in one simple integrated workflow with 3 steps: the planning, the scoping, and the verifying automatically, all based on the ISO 19650 workflow? What if it was one click to create a BIM execution plan that was populated automatically with smart fields? What if you could authorize only certain sections and have parts of documents with permissions? What if the BIM execution plan was accompanied by a detailed scope that was simple and repeatable and had rule-based values, so that you could then also automatically check for it in the verify module whether people are meeting those requirements? Well, that is what we're going to go through today in a live demo. So no more slides. Let's take a look and jump into a live demo. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new project. We're going to title my project Retail Project and hit create. And the first thing that we're going to see are 2 options. One is on the left to create using templates, and then we could also create from scratch or add something as a Word document by dragging and dropping. If we're using templates, this BIM execution plan, for example, has fields that are not yet populated. However, with one click, we create the document and also populate those smart fields. So now the project title is completed with the project title from the project that I created.
Yeah, teams see a lot of the efficiency coming in from using templates. So if you're a large organization trying to be consistent across all your projects, you'll see that consistency because you'll have a few people managing those templates that you create and manage among those few people. And at any point, a person who creates a new or starts a new project can just import the latest update. So think about consistency across all your projects, and then a little bit of automation with those smart fields.
Absolutely. Yes. So the smart fields now, if we wanted to complete them, we could simply come into the section and start editing the section. All of the different tools that you're used to for managing and creating and modifying all of the rich content, everything that you would expect, and also even things like adding videos and tables, text, images, etc. into these. But the smart fields can be populated by clicking and typing. This is a project description. This is going to be a fantastic project. And now that smart field will be populated everywhere throughout all of the documents that it's used in. The different tools to be able to duplicate, send a link to somebody, add a description. Also, all of the changes are automatically tracked in the version history. And if you have used this from a template, then it will always be linked to that source template so that you can see what is now updated. Maybe the corporate team have updated your templates.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest challenge we hear from customers is how do I keep these templates consistent after projects have been created? Sometimes projects get put on hold and you don't even know what version of that document was started. Was it started a month ago, 6 months ago? What version did it start with? You'll get a notification on every project if it's outdated or not, and then you'll have a choice to incorporate those updates.
Yep. And one of the great things about working in these bite-sized pieces, these units of thought, is that we can start to have conversations and go through an approval process on just certain parts. So I know, Louis, you're working with me and you've jumped into this same project because you're an administrator. I'm going to now @mention Louis and say, is this good? And he'll get a notification by email. We can go through a threaded conversation to understand how this part of the plan can be approved or not. So now we get a notification. All good, let's publish. So now let's go and publish this section so that everyone knows that this part is authorized for use. It really reduces the bottleneck of waiting for the whole document to be finished before sending it to anyone.
Yeah, that workflow is typically done by creating a PDF of a draft and then sending that out to 10 different people and then trying to consolidate those 10 different reviews. All of that can be done within the app with this built workflow.
Yep, absolutely. And that document can be accompanied by multiple documents. If we have other documents that we've created before, maybe a document that is a painting contract. If I drag and drop this painting contract as a Word document into a new tab, it will create a structured data based on the content in that document. So the headings and the content is all nicely structured now. And now that we've got more than one document in here, we also have the ability to show who is going to be managing it. So if I had multiple teams, or if I wanted to restrict contracts for only project managers, I could do that. And by doing that, I can assign this, and we could assign these to different teams. If we added more teams, we could do that.
Yeah, there's all kinds of possibilities for the documents. We see teams using it for internal training purposes, kind of like their standards of how to model something in Revit, and just manage those permissions among their own team. But you can have other things like collaborative documents like meeting minutes, EIRs, and other types of documents that you want to put in this workflow.
Absolutely. So, I mean, how easy is it to do that? If we wanted the exchange information requirements and maybe we wanted to manage meeting minutes as well, we could add them quite simply and have all of those documents in the same place. Really quick, really easy to do. What accompanies a BIM execution plan or a set of contract requirements? Any ideas? We need a scope as well.
Oh. I thought you were asking people in the chat.
Maybe. Okay, let's try that one again. What accompanies a BIM execution plan?
Well, you need a scope. You need a scope. Yeah, you need a scope definitely to complete your BIM execution plan.
So we need to understand the tasks and the responsibilities in some kind of a matrix, in some kind of a grid. So that's what the scope is for. Let's put something in here just to show you how simple it could be, but this could be anything from activities for setting up the project, or it could be systems or building elements. In this example, let's use ductwork as an example. Let's drag one of these in. And by dragging it into our project, we have now created a milestone that we will rename.
These milestones are BIM uses, deliverables. Typically, these milestones fall under certain phases, DD, concept, and what are those bite-sized deliverables that you'll need out of the model? Whether it's asset information, handover, 3D coordination, a design review. Those are the types of milestones you'd want to add in here, and then work on the list that Clive had already dragged in for the HVAC supplier.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in this example, we're going to add a requirement, and we're going to say that this requirement, so based on the geometric requirements, we don't need fabrication level. let's say that we are requiring these detailed elements, and we also want some information related to them when we have that model handed over. So the information drawer at the bottom allows us to manage information requirements. When you start a project, there are none in the project. However, you could use the library of all of, here we've got IFC properties, we've got other templates in here, and you can access other projects. This is all structured data that you could use. I'm going to show you in this example how you might create one. And this example, I'm going to say the length is going to be the property, and the rule that we want to check is that the number we would like it to be between. All of these can be set up so that you can have really structured, very detailed rules. In this example, we're going to choose numbers between. I'm going to say that it needs to be between something like, and define this in millimeters. And now save the rule, or save this information requirement and apply it by selecting it and applying it to our item in the grid. So now we have got this line underneath that says the length on these ducts must be a number, must be between these. And we also have a units defined. We could tag, we could do a whole bunch of other things. But in principle, this was how we'd create a task, which is an information container of requirements that could have a description, that could have a set of checklist items, that could be assigned to a person, could be assigned to a team, can have an activity, have a status, and have set of dates. So this container of requirements allows us to define a task very, very clearly. Now, if we've done this before and we have defined a list of requirements in either another project or in a template, we can go to that in the library. Here we've got a template that's actually available through the app to everyone, along with all of the different classification systems that are available around the world. If we pick this template, not only is it the responsibility matrix, but also things like the task information delivery plans from these other teams. And in the responsibility matrix, we have set up a structure so that we can drag and drop this one folder into our project, and it will automatically create us all of the tasks that are related, and also all of the information requirements that are, and also the teams as well. All of these teams have been set up. I'm going to reorder.
All of that, yeah, while you reorder, all of the templates that you create are reusable. So any project you have in the past can be reused, and it's very flexible enough to copy in the teams, copy in the attachments that were in the containers, the information requirements, the checklist items. So many teams utilize this template workflow for continuous improvement from project to project. So if you had one project and you missed an item, add it as a checklist. It'll be there as a checklist item. It'll be there on the next project for you to remind yourself of something you may have missed. So, and also, you know, resources. Typically, teams want to do all of the scope in Excel, but to put all of this type of information on a spreadsheet is very difficult and confusing. We start to use acronyms, but yet you now need to manage another sheet of acronyms, and that's just one example of how now you need to link to other resources. Here you're putting all of those that information into one container for each of the tasks and preparing it for either the modeler or the person who will eventually be verifying these tasks.
Yep, just showing that this is the same as the one that we just created. So I'm going to remove the one that we created, and we have some rules on this item, and a task was created along with the mechanical team that hasn't got a name yet because we haven't assigned an actual team. But if we were to review this task and go through the approval of the set of tasks, Louis, should we do it on the mechanical content? Maybe you're the mechanical engineer.
Sure.
So if I was to propose something, this would be what I was proposing for the asset information model. And prior to it being agreed and put into a contract, maybe Louis would go in and start to review the status and start to approve. You can see he's going through these, and maybe he would make a comment on one. But in essence, when we have a set of content that something we want to contract to, we would, and actually just before we jump to that, maybe we should also start to look at what the timeline looks like. So say we're focusing on the asset information model. And if I filter for just the asset information model, and we can start to see these tasks, let's open to expand the folders so we can see all of the tasks. And I'm going to switch from the grid view into the timeline view. And when I switch from the grid view into the timeline view, we see the tasks as bars on a Gantt chart. And we can start to move these and say when they're going to start and how long they're going to take. So if I start to define this, and maybe I'll add dependencies between these. And actually, I quite like the view in the compact view because that reminds me much more of a scheduling tool, a programming tool. We can define requirements and constraints might be needed, and we can define durations. We can start to add dependencies and so on. So as we're doing this, we're building a timeline, and the combination of the grid and the timeline and the plans that we have created can be creating an export. The export, if we create a PDF of that, along with a contents page, let's just add a few of these and add the grid, the timeline, the details, and a set of information requirements, nice cover page, and also a full contents, so you can go through everything that's in the document, see the requirements that we have here for 3D coordination, asset information, all of the requirements, information requirements, etc., and all the assignments as well. So that document, as it changes or as the project changes, we can then version it by creating new versions like so. We can even auto version that document to send it to a set of people that are on the project on a weekly basis, so that they get it in their inbox. When you are happy with a version and you would like it to be contracted, I will copy one of these versions to our contracts tab, and then I will let's ask Louis to sign it. I'll also sign it as well, and he'll get an email. The document status will move to in review, and if I was to sign this document and approve, now that will get affixed to it. Louis will also be signing that document. And have you done it yet, Louis? Yep. And now if I open that document, we will see our signatures as a cover page and the document ID throughout the document. So that's setting up the contract and requirements. Now let's move on to when we verify the tasks. The thing that we'll first of all see is a Kanban board. You can see the status of all of these tasks, and it's a simple view of, and I can see Louis dragging these. So Louis is actually showing how each one of these can be set. I can show you how we can drag these. If I drag one of these, it would change the status. We can also see this in a team view or a team member view, or all in one list. The purpose to this is to make it simple for teams to provide updates and not have to keep sending emails backwards and forwards to share how they're doing, what the progress is. It's very easy to see it all in the one list.
Yeah, you create your own custom workflow. Whether you're trying to approve scope in the very beginning stages of a project, you can have this approval workflow of what's proposed, what's approved. They can use the Kanban board to make updates or make them live in the scope. And then as those tasks progress, then you can have other statuses like it's been started, it's completed. Some of those are already added here because the scope and the Kanban, they're all integrated. Wherever you open up that task, you're looking at the live updates of each one. So you can always go back to the scope and actually get a full overview of where each task's status is.
Yep. And then when somebody has actually created a deliverable, whether that is a 2D or 3D deliverable, we can either upload it, one of 80 odd file formats, including Revit and IFC, or you could connect into another CDE, for example, the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So if I go through the connection, use a model that is already uploaded somewhere else, any of the versions that are uploaded to Autodesk's Construction Cloud will also be uploaded here. So let me select a couple of models here, the architecture and the MEP, not very well named in this example, but showing that instantly, close the panel on the right-hand side, showing this instantly shows me the model, and it allows the system to check those requirements. There are 3 different ways to link an element to a task. This one is at the model level, and we can use a property, in this example, a type property or type name. And by saving this rule, what we're doing is finding all of the elements that are related to those properties and linking it based on the names of our tasks. but that instantly shows us that there are 6 slabs here, and you can also see whether they are meeting the requirements instantly as well. So the color coding shows whether they are meeting or whether they're not meeting the requirements. So we would go through this process to understand what the status of these tasks were. But let's check into the model that we were talking about earlier. So in the team's tasks was the mechanical engineer. That was what Louis was looking for. And I only want to review the things that are started. Maybe he hasn't quite finished them. But this would be where we would select the MEP model. It will then open and check certain rules and validate whether they are meeting those rules or not. What it's doing is basically finding all of the properties on all the elements, understanding which ones connect to which tasks, and also validating, verifying. So you can see 74% of these elements are correct. If I want to see what they are, I click on that. I can open up this task, and then I can start to see we wanted a system on these elements. We wanted a flow to be completed with any value. We wanted the text to be exactly a specific text in the system classification. We wanted a certain pressure drop to be less than a certain amount. We wanted the length to be a fabrication level. So easily checking this to see which ones are missing the requirement, which ones have the requirement but they are incomplete or the value doesn't meet the rule, and then which ones are complete and correct. And by seeing that, we're able to review the model before, and this is a QA step that would happen before it's approved and paid for. And the principle is that this is part of the workflow for the people that are modeling, and it would only be when this is 100% that would then the task status would be set to complete, and the manager who is reviewing it would then be the only one that would be able to verify. So if we were to see this, we could see of those do not meet the requirement. The length is not between these numbers. And we can then simply say, I want to group these together to start investigating them, see the rest of the model, and start interrogating and asking people for updates. So we have gone through a lot, but just to recap on the workflow, we have looked at how to quickly create all of your documentation for your project in the same place, have permission-based documents all in the same place, version control, understanding what is actually published and authorized for use, going through a commenting process and work in progress, smart fields to make that super quick and super simple. In the scope, we looked at, again, using templates, the grid and the timeline view, understanding different milestones, maybe grouped in different phases or stages of a project. This is really the purpose for that deliverable, and everything from a calculation to a wall foundation to a property on a stair by a certain team at a certain state at a certain time in the project, going through an approval process with statusing process, and also being able to automatically verify whether the elements and their properties meet the requirements in an integrated workflow. So really streamlining the definition of requirements, the contracting for those requirements, and also the checking of those requirements. Planning, scoping, and verifying. That is a simple 3-step process to better information management. We'll finish on some resources, and I see that there's a ton of questions, which is great to see, and lots of requests for meetings and follow-ups, so that's fantastic. I think there's a link in the chat. Maybe, Akash, you want to post some links in the chat as well to book some stuff. We have a tips and tricks series, which is 6 webinars, educational BIM management webinars, available on demand. Go to the link that Akash will paste in the chat now. We also have, if you're interested in the ISO 19650 standards and workflows certification, that is also a set of webinars, I think 6 in the ISO 19650 explained, and then 2 further for understanding how to get trained and how to get your certification. And then the last one is the training and certification as you go from the basics as an information manager through to being an expert. There's also a link in the chat to register for that. We believe in enterprise level security, and your data is private, and we have a whole load of great options when it comes to storing that data and managing that data. We love it when people share what they think, whether it's good or bad. It's great to hear. Here are some, and we really appreciate your feedback. That's how we learn and how we grow and how we improve the platform. So the last message is, don't plan late, plan early. I'm sure that there are some questions in the Q&A, but I'll say thank you so much for being with us, and we will follow up with either email or with a meeting with any of the team when you're ready.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye for now.